Let's get ready to RPG!
RPG! RPG! RPG! RPG! RPG!
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to the Knights of Last Call. My name is Derek Melinda, and I am here. We are here. We're back. Glad to see you. Glad to have you join me here on this witching hour. Everyone was voting in chat about how many content creators do you watch, obviously, except for this one. 2 to 4 seems to be the most common. Put some names in chat. I'm curious. Who are you guys watching? Well, most of you said that you're just watching a couple. Obviously, there's a couple of you who seem to be watching every fucking buddy. But I'd love to know, who you watching? Who are some of your favorites? I'd be curious if there's maybe an overlap between the type of tuber that you like and maybe the people who watch this show. I'm also curious to see what kind of, like, are you watching them for content? Are you watching them for funnies? Are you watching them for actual plays? I don't profess to know all of the quote unquote dungeon tubers, although I have met a good number of them at this point between conventions and the whatnot. So that'll be pretty cool. Close the poll there. Anyways, I don't expect to get a ton of people for tonight's stream, simply because it's late and we put it up late, and it's Dragontide, so it's not the most popular of topics, which is fine. We can hang out, and that's actually kind of works out better. Because this is actually one of those instances where I have to basically do some work. So you guys get to hang out with me. Oh, man, we got some 6 here. Hey, you know what, Enrique? There's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes the algorithm does what it does, That's totally acceptable. All right. So, what are we doing tonight? Well, those of you who have been, following along with us know that we have kicked off a new campaign for our Patreon, our mega campaign. A new mega campaign for our Patreon. We've had Northern Reaches going for years now. That would be Pathfinder 2. And now we've launched Dragontide. And Dragontide uses Dragonbane. But with Dragontide, I wanted to do something a little bit different. I wanted to make, one of the things that we've learned is that more and more and more people want to become engaged in these games throughout the course of the week. And each progressive Northern Reaches season has added more and more elements to what we will call non-adventuring time, downtime, town time, whatever you want to call it. And with Dragontide, I really wanted to create a very involved game within the actual broader context of that sort of offline play. So what we have done with Dragontide is create a, I think, fairly robust system for playing, essentially, the game asynchronously and offline. So here in Dragontide, each week, your character receives a certain number of what are called downtime actions, the name taken from Blades in the Dark. We shouldn't really call them that. It's one of those situations where we called them that because that's what we were referencing and the name kind of stuck, but it's not really called downtime. There is no such thing as downtime. They should be called town actions, but anyways, the name stuck. One of those things that I'm sure will change. And with those downtime actions or town actions, you can engage in various activities. And one of my goals has been to create a fairly robust set of initial buildings that will allow players through a wide variety of character builds, if you will, to engage with and interact with the town in meaningful ways. While at the same time, I want to provide a somewhat of a gamey experience, because there are a number of people, and this was part of our implied, well, not even implied, it was directly stated, promise was that we were going to try to create a game for people who couldn't play the game. We know that not everybody has 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 hours a week to play in 2 or 3 sessions, or sorry, 1 or 2 sessions of Dragonbane. Plus, the time schedule may not work out for you. Maybe the game is at 7 p.m., but your kids have soccer practice or something. So I wanted to create something that was robust enough that people could essentially play a version of the game, even if it's not particularly role-playing heavy, that they could still enjoy and still interact with, and at the same time contribute to the wider scale of the game. So to that end, what these buildings allow you to do is they allow you to spend your downtime action and then use your character to then try to generate some kind of town-based resource. And it has been mentioned before on this channel, there are 5 main town-based resources. There is supply. And again, these are sort of generic catch-all resources. They represent, anything that you could want them to be. But once they become supply, okay, they are totally fungible. And what I mean by that is you may gain supply, and supply is, stuff, building material, bulk goods, miscellaneous pieces of equipment. Once it becomes supply, though, capital S, capital U, PPLY, it's all the same. So let me give you a great example of this, okay? Right now, in this, the game is divided into 3-week seasons. Right now, they are in the summer season. And the summer season has an event. It's called a challenge event because it tests the community to overcome a challenge. And this community event, Breaking Waves, is basically saying, with the coming fall comes the storm season, and the break wall that defends Stormhaven's harbor is in desperate need of repair. So what they need to put together as a community is 30 points of progress. Think of it as ticks on a clock, and they have until the end of week 6, which is October 12th in our time, to do this. And to get a point of progress, they need to deliver a bundle of 10 supply. And you can see here it says, stone, timber, and laborers work day and night to reinforce the break wall. Though costly, the townsfolk find reassurance in the sheer material strength piled against the sea. So in this regard, supply is, rubble, rock, aggregate, pilings, lumber, to create a break wall. However, how do you get supply? Well, and this is why I said it becomes an abstract resource. One way that you might get supply is by going to the fishing dock, okay? And when you go to the fishing dock, you, let me see if actually I can do this here. And this might make it a little bit easier we can zoom in a little bit more maybe. We can go to the fishing dock, and you use your fishing rod, and you make a hunting and fishing check. And if you succeed, you get some supply. And the supply represents, maybe, a basket full of fish, right? Or whatever that you caught, a bumper crop of fish. Similarly, when you go to the lumber yard, your character can make a crafting or carpentry check. And if you succeed, you earn supply. And obviously, in this regard, it means timbers and lumbers and board. But once it becomes supply, supply is supply. And so your character may have earned a bunch of supply by going to the fishing dock, and then they take that supply and they take it to the breakwall project. But the idea is that you're not literally stuffing the breakwall with fish. It's a generic resource. So that is, that's sort of the generic nature of the game. There's actually a number of things that I could get into here that I think are kind of interesting. But so we have all of them in place except for 4. So right now we have the fishing dock, we have the lumber yard, we have beach combing, we have street performance, we have the Sapphire Beach, the guild hall, dockside market, supply depot, shipping pier, and then we have on research desk. I don't know why that one's not there, but let me change this actually to open for business because people have already been using this. So we have 4 that need to be completed for my initial list of buildings that I wanted to complete. One is pickpocketing. One is called field expedition. One is called scuttlebutt. And the last one is called treasure diving, which actually I wasn't part of my initial list, but somebody came up with a cool idea. I can't remember who it was now. I think maybe it was King Hodop. I don't know. But we came up with it on a Dragontide stream, a couple weeks ago. So with these final buildings, I will be pretty happy with what we have for the beta. And now, of course, remember, one of the things here is that the players themselves as a community can also build new buildings. In fact, I encourage them to do so that they can get better buildings, or they maybe can upgrade an existing building. So the choice is kind of in their hands. Good night, Dr. D. Hart. So, Thaddeus, in regards to making the events challenging or something that people have to work at, is there something that is in the design that discourages hoarding of supply before dumping it on the new event? Yeah, Thaddeus, there's actually 3 things. One is that there is a limit to how much supply your character can carry. Supply has a weight of 1, and normally in Dragonbane, your character is limited to their strength score in how much you can carry. Now, Bob had originally assumed that everybody, because Bob doesn't have the mega game, and more importantly, the MMO experience. I don't think Bob has ever played an MMO. And I don't know if he's ever played like Diablo or any of those like action RPGs. So Bob basically just assumed that everybody had an infinite, essentially, vault in town. And I basically told him, like, oh no, that's really problematic, because that makes it so that people could just have infinite supplies. And so I was like, oh, we need a quick fix for this. And somebody, I think it was Edril, pointed out, like, well, there's the chest. And we looked at the chest. We said, oh, the chest can hold 20. I said, yeah, okay, that'll work. That'll work for now. We'll figure it out later. But maybe for the main release. So you can only have 20. You can only have what your character can carry plus 20 because of your chest in town. And of course, as your character accumulates more stuff, that'll also eat up more slots. So there is a limit to that. So that's number 1. Number 2, not every challenge event may require supply. So you may have stacked up a bunch of supply and found that the next challenge event doesn't actually require it. And 3, the idea is that your character is using these resources: supply, wealth, knowledge, influence, and the very rare mana. There's a tax in the form of these negative events, which ideally the community wants to solve. But the idea is that there are things that you want to be doing proactively with your resources. You want to be constructing personal projects, doing new buildings, building personal buffs, if you will, for your own character, or building a new building or upgrading a building for the town. And so if you just sit on the resources, you're not really making the town better. And so people are like, is this in the rule book? No, but there's an implication here that, again, we're only it's only a 4-season beta. We need to come up with a new term for it. But again, because we usually call these things seasons, but in our Dragontide game, we actually have like spring season, summer season, fall season, winter season. We're only doing 1 year, so we're only doing 12 months, which is 12 weeks. But one of the implicit ideas is that each season, the challenge events get harder and harder and harder, and they require more and more and more stuff. And so if the town doesn't like upgrade the starting buildings, then by the time you get through, let's say, the first 3 or 4 seasons, you may find that the buildings themselves now are very inadequate because they're not efficient enough at converting your time into resources, if that makes any sense. So those are like the three main reasons that people may want to do that. And also, like supply takes up a physical amount of space, but wealth doesn't. And again, wealth isn't literally gold coins jangling in your belt pouch. That's what gold coins are for. What you can do is you can convert gold coins into wealth, and wealth is supposed to be that sort of, non-liquid version of your character's access to resources and money. And you could, for example, go to the dockside market, and at the dockside market, I'm going to zoom in here a little bit again. At the dockside market, you can trade your character's supply, okay, for wealth. So you can trade 3 supply and convert it into 2 wealth. Now, wealth is a more exclusive resource. I hesitate to put values on the resources, and even if I did, they don't really have a unit associated with it. They're a unitless measure, and the reason why I say I hesitate to put it is because, for example, this season, the community needs to build a break wall, or there's going to be nasty. Oh, damn you, YouTube! Here it goes, fucking stupid thing. Try to fix that here. I killed my bit rate, so hopefully it'll recover here shortly. I don't know. It's so weird how it does that. By the way, again, I stress this enough. AT&T fiber is supposed to be coming to my neighborhood, and it'll be a glorious day when we do this. Anyways, this lets you trade 3 supply into 2 wealth, and it's relative, but a supply has a value of 1, and wealth has a value of 2. So 2 wealth has a combined value, if you will, of 4. 3 supply has a value of 3. So really, you're trading 3 for 4 here. So this is a valuable trade to make. So Cinnabus has a great question. Not going to lie, having both gold, currency, and wealth isn't my favorite thing. It's not my favorite thing either, Cinnabus. But this is a fight that I lost. I'm not the only person who is running Dragontide, and more importantly, I am not the GM. And when we were originally talking about this game a year ago, which is that long ago, I am not the Dragonbane expert, right? The Dragonbane experts are people like Bob and Edril and Goblins and Androids, people who have run, Edril basically ran his own mega game, his own West Marches game on the server for a while. So these are Dragonbane pros. And I originally wanted to have everything be just a generic currency. But Cinnabos, we've always had this problem with mega games, which is that some people are like, I don't want to play a mega game. I just want to play Pathfinder 2, or I just want to play Dragonbane. And I respect that. I don't agree with it, but I respect it. And so for some people, they just didn't want to even bother with interacting with the town. But Cinnabos, if you will indulge me, I don't know if I need a whiteboard for this. But there is a method to my madness, and maybe I can explain it thusly. Coming online here. Where is my stylus? There it is. Okay. All right. So here is the reasoning. You did not come up with pearl diving? Okay, someone did. All right, so again, I'm going to try to explain this as best as I can. So the reason why we have gold coins And the reason why we have wealth is because of the following. I want there to be a advantage to going on adventures. And so when a character comes back with gold coins, they can convert that into wealth. And when you are converting gold coins into wealth, it is done at a 2-to-1 ratio. This means that for every 2 gold coins a character has, they can buy 1 point of wealth. However, this is not a, what's the property? It's not transitive. It's not distributive. I don't remember the property. It is not that property where it's the same reversed. When wealth becomes a gold coin, 1 wealth becomes 1 gold coin. And the reason, reflexive, thank you, George, that is it, thank you. It is not reflexive. So 2 gold coins can buy a wealth, but 1 wealth can only buy back 1 gold coin. And the reason I did this is because if somebody goes in an adventures and they get 100 gold coins, they can go and they can buy something that costs 100 gold. Okay? Or, and that's kind of quote unquote playing normal Dragonbane. Or they can convert that into 50 wealth. Okay? However, let's say somebody is just in town and they don't go on an adventure and they generate 50 wealth. Well, they can't buy that really cool item that costs 100 gold because 50 wealth only converts into 50 gold. For a town character to buy a 100 gold item, they would need 100 wealth. And so from a certain point of view, gold coins are a premium product. Now, it is a choice that an adventurer can make, which is to convert their gold coins into wealth. Number one, I think that's obvious and diegetic. Number two, it's a way for the adventurers to have a potentially outsized influence on the town game if they so choose to, without the town characters being able to sort of out-muscle or out-monetarily muscle, okay, the characters who went on an adventure. One of my core conceits is that amongst the 5 resources, supply, wealth, knowledge, influence, and mana, the characters on adventure versus the characters in town, the characters on adventure should have the easiest access to getting money and mana. The characters in town should have the better access to supply and influence. And then knowledge is about the same. So generally speaking, there is, the town characters do get this kind of little perk on the influence. But generally speaking, the town characters are better at getting the slightly less common resource, right? So, for example, these are the 2 common resources. These are the 2 uncommon resources, and this is the rare resource. So, adventurers are good at getting wealth. Town characters are good at getting supply, which is worth less. Adventurers are better at getting mana. Town characters are better at getting influence, which is worth less. So the town characters are basically preferred at getting the less valuable resource. So I wanted there to be a way that adventuring characters could basically have their cake and eat it too. They can get a bunch of gold coins, and they could choose to buy wealth with it. Or they could choose to buy cool, gear and stuff like that out of the book like you normally could. But a town character would have a harder time making that reverse switch because that relationship is not reflexive. And that way, characters can earn wealth. I can give town characters wealth without making it feel like gold coins are worth shit and making the adventurers feel bad because it's not worth as much. So that was kind of a long-winded answer. I don't know if that actually explained it, but that is the reason for why that is like that. Good evening, King Hodop. So there is no official building for that because it is considered to be it's in the rule book and it's considered to be an automatic or implied thing that your character can do. However, in the light of everything gets a building, I'll probably make a building for it that'll officially let you transfer your gold into wealth at a 2-to-1 and wealth into gold at a 1-to-1. So it is in the book, but yeah. Anyways, Jacob has been obsessing over Legend of the Mist. Yeah, I mean, to be clear, like Fate, it has this allure where you go, you could use this for anything and everything, but realize that sometimes when you start playing it, you can be like, there isn't enough game here. And I think that's why Legend of the Mist has that advanced resolution system and why it has so many of those optional rules to make the process of resolving those things more complicated, because I think they know that some people, kind of get irritated with the lack of, with the lack. All right, I'm going to try increasing my bit rate again after YouTube started yelling at me. So one of the comments that we actually got, I mean, we did a survey. We had like 25 people respond, which is pretty cool. And one of the complaints that people got was like, I'm not getting any treasure or resources on adventuring. Unfortunately, this is one of those areas where I go, I can't control everything. I leave that more in Bob's capable hands. And by Bob, I don't even really mean Bob. I mean, that's a GM thing, right? I can't control. I don't know what's going on in those adventures. And I don't know what, I don't know what, why treasure may or may not have been handed out, or why supply may or may not have been handed out. But it is supposed to be fairly common. One of the, again, and Cinnabos, I know you're kind of newer to this bit rate. Yeah, so for me, Roll for Combat, it's my internet. My internet sucks. I have Spectrum, and they routinely at this time of night start running like performance matrix and DNS changes. So I mean, I can't control Bob. Well, what I mean is I'm not part of Dragontide to manage that part of the game, And what I wanted to say here, King Hodop puts this and this. One of the major problems that we have had with these mega games is providing guidance to game masters, because maybe it's part of the inherent nature of people who want to game master. Maybe people who want to game master do it because they want control. But I've found that game masters don't respond well to restrictions or limits or advice or rules. Maybe they've read too many of those D&D books that say things like, this game is yours, do with it as you please. And they're also, quite frankly, used to running games where they are the God Lord creator of their entire universe. And whatever they say goes, and the consequences are only for them and them alone to bear. And so we have found that as we have tried to rein that in and provide guidance, believe it or not, some people really bulk against that. And the reason why it can create problems is because when it's guidance, not hard rules, that means you don't have to follow it. And what that means is that some people will follow it and some people won't. And then the people that don't follow it maybe are handing out, plus 12 Hackmaster swords. And the people who do follow the guidance suddenly say, nobody wants to go on my adventures because my treasure's shit because I'm actually following the rules. And then we point out, well, they're not rules, it's just guidance. And then they say, well, what the fuck does that even mean? If it's not a rule, then can I give out whatever I want? Because that person over there gave out an item that is insane. And how am I supposed to compete with that? That item that somebody gave out completely broke the game, right? It may sound like I'm exaggerating things, and I am exaggerating for Dragontide. That does not happen. But has that happened in Northern Reaches in past seasons? Yes, absolutely, hands down. So the problem with guidance is that, when it's a suggestion, not a rule, yes, I am specifically referring to the bone flail, but I'm referring to the bone flail. I'm referring to the real 6-shooter or a true 6-shooter. I'm referring to a variety of crazy items and crazy powers that were handed out sort of in the wild, wild west. And we reacted to that in season 2 by giving very tight guidelines about what a GM could and couldn't do. And in fact, a GM kind of had to earn the right with us to be able to do these things. And people complained about that. And then we said, well, we need to put more restrictions, and we need to make sure that we're approving these items before they get handed out. Well, guess what? That slowed things down. People had to get, approval, and that meant that things didn't happen as quickly as they wanted it to. So then people complained. So there's always a downside, right? You don't get anything for free, and so it is an ongoing problem. That's what it comes down to. Yes. So yeah, quality assurance with homebrew stuff is always going to be a problem. Yes, a real gun. I think that might have been what it was called. Yes, I just remember it killed every single minion I had on the board in one round. So, and this is in Pathfinder 2. So, there may have been something involving curving a bullet. I don't exactly remember, but it was yeah. And then, of course, if somebody, if we give guidelines and then someone doesn't follow them, we can't be mad at them because they're like, well, you didn't say it was a rule. You just said it was a guideline. I chose not to follow it because I felt like, So for those of you who don't know what the Tarrasque Bone Flail was, the Tarrasque Bone Flail was an item from Season 1. Maybe I can find it. That gave its wearer or wielder basically the lesser death ability, and that meant that they could as a reaction teleport next to somebody, except it had like a 500-foot range, and it was basically if they did something with a concentrate or manipulate or something action, and then they would, as a reaction, they could teleport up to 500 feet, make an attack of opportunity, and if it hit, not if they crit, if they hit, it disrupted that action. So needless to say, it was, it was quite the item. And before that even sounds crazy, also realize that at this state in the game, I think most characters had, 2 or 3 reactions per turn. And apparently the biggest thing that really tilted people was that the Tarrasque that they fought didn't even die. They ended up because they couldn't kill it. So they ended up opening a gate and pushing it through the gate, like a gate spell. And then people who weren't there were not only upset, obviously, that this busted item was allowed into the game, but they were also like, they didn't even kill it. How did they get its, how did they get its flail? How did they get its arm? How did they get its leg? Anyways. So, any case, yeah. So this is what we have right now. Let me see if I can bring up a character sheet. Doodle. Loading, please wait. PDF. PDF. There we go. Thank you. Eventually loaded. Still loading. Still loading. Oh, you poor PDF. I don't know why. Oh, nope. My PDF viewer is crashing. What's funny is, like, I remember when I got Sumatra, I was like, oh, it's supposed to work really well because it's very minimalist. And no, PDFs just suck. Well, hopefully my brand new $5,000 computer can actually open a PDF. So I can hear, like, my graphics card and, like, all my fans just, like, whining at full speed just to try to, like, open up this fucking PDF. Okay, so these are the skills of Dragonbane. And as you can see, some of them, a lot of them, are tied to agility, int, charisma. There are no skills tied to constitution and willpower. And there is only one base skill, crafting, which is tied to strength. Obviously, there are some weapon skills that are tied to strength, but all the weapon skills are strength or agility. So that means that for the most part, all of our skills are either agility, int, or charisma. And of course, one that is strength. So one of the goals that I had with making these skills or making these town actions was figuring out why is crafting a strength skill? Probably the same reason why crafting was a strength skill, I think, for the last 40, 30 years. I don't know. Crafting was a strength skill. Wasn't crafting a strength skill in, I don't remember what a game or edition of D&D or Pathfinder 2. Because it is. That's, you got to beat things with a hammer. Yeah, there we go. Anyways, one of the things that I wanted to do was to give a little perk to skills that aren't necessarily as useful, say, on an adventure. And that could make more sense. So, for example, we have made town actions based around seamanship and performance and myths and legend and hunting and fishing, which isn't to say that it's not useful, not that these skills can't come up. Crafting, bartering, etc., etc. So far we have come up with a bunch of skills for a bunch of different actions and a bunch of different items, but swimming is not one that we have yet. But that is why we have treasure diving. Treasure diving is going to use the swimming skill. Fishing dock uses the hunting and fishing skill. Lumber yard uses the crafting skill or carpentry. Beach combing uses spot hidden. Street performance uses performance. The guild hall uses your trade skill: alchemy, blacksmithing, carpentry, enchanting, leatherworking, or tinkering. Dockside market uses bartering. Supply depot uses bartering. Shipping pier uses seamanship. And research desk uses myths and legends. So, pickpocketing, treasure diving, field expedition, and scuttlebutt are the 4 that remain, and those are the ones that we're going to work on now. So I'm actually going to start with the these are all made. I'm happy to talk about any of them if you want. I'm trying different things, and I can get into the details of why I'm trying certain things, and we'll see what happens. But one of the things that I'm trying to avoid, and in some cases I have failed, not like because I tried and failed, but because I didn't try, and it's proving my point. One of the things that I need to do is come up with better ways to change and limit how people interact with these actions, so that they just don't spam the action 8 times in a row. Put another way, this is the challenge that I have with this game. This game has to be, number one, asynchronous, right? There can't be any timing restrictions. Like if somebody does something before somebody else, that's not fair, because people can play at any point in time during the course of the game, or during the course of the week. That's the only restriction. You have to do it during the week. But what that means is if somebody does it Sunday night, at the very last minute of the week, or if someone does it first thing 12:01 Monday morning a.m., there can't be any sort of relative advantage or edge. Now, I can change things from week to week, which is one thing I'm trying to do. But it also means that I can't really have what you do affect what other people do, at least not in the short term. So one of the things that I want to make sure that I try to do is to have the actions that you take change in their effective value from a week to week's basis. Basically, if you're really good at fishing, why wouldn't you just go to the fishing dock and spend all of your actions on fishing? Right? That makes the most sense. So what can I do to make it so that you don't do that? Now, an easy way, perhaps the most blunt way, is limiting how many times that you can use this action. Now, as part of the experiment of beta, I have deliberately made some actions unlimited, and I wanted to see if that is in fact what people would do. And sure enough, people have done that, which is fair. But in the case of fishing, particularly, each week at the start of the week, we roll on a random table to determine a event. There's 20 events on what might be called the Angler's Almanac, and what is going on this week and what's changing, what's going on with fishing. Okay. So for example, this week in the Angler's Almanac, the event is called Silver Scales. And this week, when you get a success, instead of getting 3 supply, you get 2 supply and 1 wealth. So technically this week, fishing is a little bit better, but it gives you wealth instead of a point of supply. Last week, there was a jellyfish swarm, if I can find it, and people couldn't use their nets to go fishing, right? Because you'd catch all the jellyfish. So I'm trying to experiment with how do these random events affect and change the way that how people take actions and what they do with their actions. But if you look at some of the actions, they are limited. Like, for example, shipping pier can only be used twice per week. Supply depot can only be used twice per week. So, how does that interact with the way that people use these items and use these actions? So, scuttlebutt. So, a little bit of naval lore for you guys. Scuttlebutt was the term given to the giant cask of water that was kept up on deck amidships in naval jargon. And it's where basically the fresh water was. And so people would, go to get water, and they would sit around the scuttle and trade, tales and rumors and, basically water cooler talk. So when people say, oh, that's scuttlebutt, they basically mean it's bullshitting. It's, it's rumors. It's what we would now call water cooler talk. But some people still use that term scuttlebutt. But like a lot of the things that we say in real life, they have their origins in naval jargon. Learning the ropes, give them some leeway, wind at your back. There's a lot of terminology that we use that basically has its origins in nautical terminology, because it was pretty prevalent for a good chunk of human history. Anyways, so the idea of scuttlebutt is we have one location that is int based. So most of our town characters are intelligence or charisma based, or some mixture of the two. And we have a location called Research Desk. Research Desk allows you to accumulate the knowledge resource, okay? And makes sense, right? And this tests the myths and legends skill from Dragonbane, which, as you might expect, you know, is pretty much a skill that represents your ability to sort of, you know, sift through ledgers and myths and legends and generate, you know, and come up with hidden bits of knowledge. Now, Research Desk use myths and legends, which is an int-based skill. And in this case, it can only be used 3 times per week. But it does have this thing here. It says C cramming. And there is a special. Most of the actions, most of the town actions have a series of special game elements which change or affect the way that the game works. And the way cramming works is you may take this action even after you've reached the limit of 3 times per week. But if you do, you take it with +1 Bane, which is disadvantage in 5th edition terms. But in Dragonbane terms, it's called a Bane, but in 5th edition, we would call it disadvantage. So you can only use it 3 times per week, but if you start using it 4th or 5th or 6th time a week, then you do it with a Bane. So you are less likely to succeed, and you're more likely to generate no knowledge, or roll a nat 20, which is crit failure in this game, a demon. And not only do you not become gaining knowledge, you also become angry. And angry gives you, it's a condition that gives you banes on all int-based skill rolls until you cure your angry condition. So if for some odd reason somebody was jamming at the Research Desk, they became angry, and then they exceeded their number of actions and continued to cram, they would be rolling with double disadvantage. They would be rolling with 2 banes. So they'd be very unlikely to succeed. So this is the way you generate knowledge via an int-based skill. So I want to do... You cannot become double angry. So I want to do something similar for a charisma-based skill. And now I got to find what I jotted down. Sheets, town phase. I thought I wrote this down. Must have been in Excel. Yeah, it must have been in Excel. So in this case, when we look at our skills that we have used here, we use bartering, which is a charisma-based skill for the supply depot and for the market. But if we look at our PDF of our, or rather our whiteboard of the things, we can see here that there is a couple of charisma-based skills that I would like to tap into. And one of them is the persuasion skill. So my idea with this is basically you are, you know, you're going to the local hangouts, you know, you're persuading someone, you know, you're scuttlebutting, right? You're trading, you're swapping tales, you're trading rumors, and you persuade someone to tell you an interesting bit of knowledge. So in this way, persuasion becomes the key skill. So this is going to be a persuasion skill to acquire knowledge. And at its most basic, we would basically say, okay, we would start by saying that, we can always change all this stuff here, but we would say there are no limits. It takes 1 downtime action. It uses a persuasion roll, and we'll get rid of all the specials. And then we have to decide what happens with the actions, or what happens with the success results. Now, this table that we see right here this outcome is what happens right now for Research Desk. So with Research Desk, if you fail, you get no knowledge. If you succeed, you get 1 knowledge. And if you get a dragon, a critical success, you get 2 knowledge. And you get to make an advancement roll for your myths and legends. And this thing is a general rule that we have for most of our actions, which is that if you roll a nat 1, you get an advancement roll. You have a chance to increase your skill. And then when you get a demon, usually something bad happens. So in this case, it's also kind of tied to how good the action is. But of course, in Dragonbane, if you get a demon when you are researching, you become angry, which gives you banes on ints. But for charisma, there is the disheartened. And I think that sounds pretty cool. So again, we might change this. Now, the problem here is that, as stated right now, this action is exactly the same as Research Desk. And I mean, obviously, Research Desk had the 3 times per week limit, the 3 times per week limit, and there was the things that you could do with the specials on Research Desk. So, for example, Research Desk had the cramming rule, but it also had the school supplies. You can spend 1 supply and 1 wealth before you make the roll to get a +1 boon, so you get an advantage. You can also hire a private tutor if you spend 1 influence before the roll. Not only does this give you a boon, but if you succeed, you also get to make an advancement roll for myths and legends. So private tutor, school supplies, this gives Research Desk a little bit more, way for the players to make some choices. Do I want to spend some of these resources to get some of these additional benefits? So the question is, how do we make Scuttlebutt still generate knowledge, but feel, different, make it feel better? And unfortunately, again, I thought I did it. It must have been on Excel, on my laptop, not here. But I have sort of a relative way of sort of evaluating these things. Let me see if I can bring up another window. That's that. Okay. Rename sheets. Okay. So this is an example of how I evaluate the relative successes. Well, Cinnabos, you never get to make an advancement roll unless you roll a nat 1. Now, again, like I said, when I was working on my laptop, this is actually completely filled out. There are some subtle differences about Google Sheets, which I don't like. I'm an Excel man, and there's some things that Google Sheets doesn't do particularly well, or does it more awkward. So I tend not to. I said not to use it. So then I was using Excel instead of this. So this is me. This is how I calculate the marginal value of what these actions are. So, for example, if we go with Research Desk, it takes 1 action. It doesn't cost anything to use it. If you critically fail, you get a 0 knowledge. If you fail, you get 0 knowledge. If you succeed, you get 1 knowledge. Now, 1 knowledge has a relative value of 3, right? Remember I said before that failure is supply is worth 1, wealth is worth 2, knowledge is worth 3, influence is worth 4. So 3. So when you critically succeed, you get 2 knowledges. So that's 6. So basically, now this is just a sum product of these values. Okay. So, Google Chrome, help. Now, what are these numbers here? Well, these are the base chances. Now, I assume, for purposes of my evaluation, that your character has a 14 in the or 15. I can't remember what it was, but basically, your character is not like the best at the world at this, but you're pretty decent. The reason being that you're probably going to use the skills that you're the best at. So most of the time, most people are going to be using skills that they are, at least, probably 50+% likely to succeed on. So the baseline assumption is that you have a 60% chance of success, a 5% chance of critical success, a 5% chance of critical failure, and a 30% chance of failure. So with that in mind, the relative marginal value of the Research Desk, okay, is 2.1. Now, is there a cost to it? No, it doesn't cost anything to use. And then how many downtime actions does it take? Well, it takes 1 downtime action. So we divide by that and we get 2.1. And So this tells us that action, research desk, is better than beachcombing. Now, for those of you who don't play Dragontide, which is most of you, what is beachcombing? So beachcombing is you go to the beach and you make a spot hidden roll. And if you fail, you don't find anything. If you succeed, you find scraps and salvage, and you get 1 supply. But if you roll a dragon, you find a hidden treasure. You roll a d6, and then you either find shipwrecks, stores, rare driftwood, a gemstone cache, mystic remnants, a sunken strongbox, or a captain's chest. So beachcombing is not that great. But if you roll in that 1, okay, it's kind of like hitting the lotto. So this is represented, if we look at beachcombing, that you can see that it doesn't cost anything. The critical failure, 0. Failure, 0. Success only gets you 1, but a critical success gives you, on average, 10 units of value. You can actually, that's on average. So if you roll one of the better ones, like a 5 or 6, you actually get more than that. So even though the value is only 1.1, it doesn't really have much of a thing. Now, the other advantage to beachcombing is there is almost no risk for beachcombing. Beachcombing, even if you critically fail beachcombing, okay, the critical fail result is high tide, and you don't get any supply, and you can't use beachcombing again until you take a different downtime action. Basically, you have to wait for the tide to go out so you can start walking on the beach again. That's not really a penalty. I mean, it means that you can't just literally, if you roll demon, you got to go do something else. So beachcombing has almost no downside. In fact, it essentially virtually does not have a downside. Okay. Also, spot hidden. I'm just trying to tell you. I'm actually kind of talking out loud. Mostly for myself. Spot hidden is what I would call a good skill. Right, it's basically the perception check of It's the check you make to like find traps and secret doors. So it's a very good skill to have, even if you're going on an adventure. I'm going on an adventure. So to that end, I don't want to like double emphasize an already good skill. So the fact that beachcombing isn't quote unquote the most valuable skill, I'm okay with, because it has very minimal downsides. It's kind of like playing the lotto. If you roll a nat 1, you're really happy. And then it's a good skill to have, quote unquote, while adventuring. Now, that's not to say that every skill could be useful in adventuring, but let's not kid ourselves, right? There are certain skills that we know are better when you're, trying to find a trap that's about to kill you, or you're trying to find the secret door that'll get you to the ultimate treasure chest, or you're trying to evade a monster's, rampaging attack, or what have you. Now, Research Desk uses myths and legends. Not as probably, quote unquote, popular of a skill. It's int based. We know that, the town actions tend to try to lean more towards int and charisma. Technically, there is a failure. If you get a demon, your character becomes angry, and that condition will stay with you even when you go onto an adventure, unless you spend another action to heal up at the tavern. So it could potentially cost you another action if you roll a demon. It certainly makes continuing to do research very unlikely. Also, Research Desk is limited. You can only use it 3 times per week. So because it's limited, I feel a little bit better if it has a little bit more oomph to it. And so to that regard, Research Desk is stronger, so to speak, than beachcombing. And again, these values literally change depending on what skill you have. So these values, comparing them only assumes that everybody literally had the same exact % chance. But it's a way for me to sort of evaluate it. So from that perspective, if we look at Research Desk here at 2.1, Research Desk is fairly equivalent to fishing with a net. So when you fish with a net, you get an extra point of supply. If you get a critical success when fishing, it's basically like hitting the jackpot. You get a rare catch, and the rare catches can be very powerful, worth a lot. And you can see that, it costs you, the average value that you get per downtime action invested in fishing is 2, whereas the average value you get invested in research desk is 2.1. Now, lumberyard, which is where you use crafting to get wood, you'll see that the value is a little lower. And this is actually something I might need to change. And the reason why I say that is because now the advantage to lumberyard is that on lumberyard, you get something even when you fail. So lumberyard, being sort of a brute force thing, is good if you suck. Because even if you even if you're not good, right, it's just chopping lumber. So even when you fail at the lumberyard, you still get something. So that kind of makes it stand out a little bit as being kind of good and superior in that way. But the other thing is, crafting is the only skill tied to strength, and it's a fighting game. It's D20. I mean, it's Dragonbane, but it's D&D. A lot of characters want to have a high strength. You get bonus damage to your melee attacks. Strength is the base score for all of the melee weapons. Your swords, your spears, your staves, maybe not your staves, but your hammers. So I'm okay if the strength-based skill is quote unquote a little bit underneath and underperforming the other one. So this is the baseline that we are working with. So this is how I sort of compare and contrast the different skills. So now, exactly, Z. That's exactly what it is. I like that lumberyard is good, even if you're bad at the skill. Feels like it's a minimum wage job kind of things. That is exactly what it is. In fact, crafting lumberyard was originally an action just called day laborer, right? And like the idea was that your character went and stood outside of the Home Depot, and just got hired to do menial labor for the day. But I ended up changing it and church basically turning it into lumberyard. But yeah, so that is exactly the idea. Yeah, exactly. You'll also see, Z, that the difference between being good at fishing and being great at fishing is significant. If you can get critical successes, it's worth a lot more. And it's +7 in value, +8 in value. Getting a critical success while lumberyarding gives you +4. Lumberyard, although that has changed now, lumberyard is unique though, because recently we just added a new action that changes this. But lumberyard was the only action that could kill you. So if you go to the lumberyard and you roll a demon, all right, if you crit fail, not only do you not get any supply, you have to roll on the severe injuries table. And this means that your character could lose a finger. It means that your character could suffer a concussion, a broken rib, or if you roll a 20, your character could die. So there's so lumberyard is the only place that used to. Now there's another one that can actually kill you, but it's the only one that can hurt you. And this is especially true because when you go to the lumberyard, I'll zoom this in a little bit maybe so you guys can see this a little better. When you go to the lumberyard, you have to pick a work ethic. So every time you take the action, you have to take a work ethic choice. Well, for starters, right off the bat, if you have the right tool for the job, if you possess a saw or a carpentry tool, you get +1 boon to the skill roll. So that means you're rolling with advantage. So basically, if you go to the lumberyard and you've got good tools, you're probably not going to roll a bane. All right, you're probably not going to roll a demon. But once you're there, every time you take the action, you have to choose your work ethic. You can either choose all in a day's work, measure twice, cut once, or you can take chop, motherfucker. So all in a day's work is just a standard roll, no extra bonuses or penalties. Measure twice, cut once, costs an extra downtime action, but it gives you an additional boon on the skill roll. And chop, motherfucker gives you a bane on the skill roll, but it doubles what you get if you fail, succeed, or critically succeed. So there's kind of like a, how much do you want to push your luck? How much do you want to, how much do you want to think? So, for example, if you have the right tools for the job, you could be rolling with advantage. And then if you choose to measure twice, cut once, and take an extra action when you take this action, you would get another advantage. You'd be rolling with double advantage. You'd be rolling with 3d20 in this game. Take low, because low is better. So you would have almost probably a guaranteed chance of getting success and a very good chance of actually getting a dragon, right? So slow and steady wins the race. But some people show up to work with the right tools, and that gives them a boon, and then they decide to chop, motherfucker, which gives them a bane, so they cancel each other out, right? The boon and the bane cancel each other out. So now it's just a straight roll, but if they succeed, they get double the amount. They get 4 on a success. They get 12 on a critical success. We should totally add that, Heart Drake. That is awesome. And we can see here. Let's see here. Where is it? We got. Like this happened yesterday. I'm sorry, yeah, yesterday. So it happened yesterday at 8. And this happened like 4 hours ago. So Ford Prefect came in and he said, to the lumber yard with Anders, that's his character's name. Sadly, he picks up some bad wood. It splinters terribly, sprays him with sharp bits of wood that lodge deep, and he stumbles over to the hospital. So he got a critical failure, and then he rolled on the severe injury tables, and he got deep wounds. I thought somebody else had gotten wounds too. Not everybody publishes their stuff in the action, and that's one thing that we weren't very clear about. And so some people do it here, some people don't do it here. So we have to sort of figure that out. I do think somebody else got hurt. Anyways, so that is so days since accident is 1, or because it happened yesterday. Right now, I'm actually going to totally add that right now. Let's see here. What do they say on job sites? What do they say? What's that term they always use? It's not like personal, it's not like personal protection, but it's like, I don't know. Stay focused. We'll go with that. There we go. 1 day. There we go. So there we go. 1 day since last accident. Does nothing, but I absolutely love it. That's fantastic. Right. Yeah. You know what? There we go. We'll do that there. Safety first. That's funny. We had someone gain a downtime action from an injury today. Yeah, so when you get a severe injury, if you roll a nat 20, which remember in this game is a critical, fumble, you die. But if you roll a nat 1, you get an impressive scar, and your charisma goes up. And your number of downtime actions that you get is based off of your charisma. So anyways, that's the lumberyard. So this is an example of, this is a fairly simple action, but you can see that there's nuances to this, right? And there's different choices to be made. But right now, this is unlimited. So there's no reason why, if you're really good at carpentry or really good at crafting, you wouldn't just come to the lumberyard and spend all your actions. So that's something that I have to consider, and how I have to sort of change it, and maybe think about different ways of doing this. So hey, look at this. Someone obvious who's in chat just made a crafting roll just about 20 minutes ago. We've got inspired. Come on. What's going on? Is this like in maximum? What happened? There we go. Okay. I was like, what happened to that thing? Inspired by the many ancient lizardmen murals seen on Emberfang Isle, Rafindel tries patterning a spear in the ancient style. Spent 2 downtime actions, which is what craft takes, plus 1 extra for overtime. Spends 2 supply, spends a point of knowledge, a bunch of statuses, 3 banes plus 2 boons equals 1 boon, and they succeeded and got 6 wealth for their action. Ooh, apparently they rolled in that one because they also got an advancement roll. So the guild hall is where people go to basically craft commissions using their crafting skills and trading it essentially into money. So you can see that the guild hall, for example, to use that action costs 2 downtime actions and 1 supply, or 2 supply, just to even use it. Oh, right. Knowledge lets you advance on a 1, 2, 3, 4. You're right. Okay, so scuttlebutt. So this, what we have written up on screen here, is basically the same thing as research desk, and here is scuttlebutt. Now this is going to use persuasion. I don't think it should cost. I think it should only cost 1 action. I don't think it should have a cost to use. So the real question is, what makes this different than research desk? And so basically what I am doing when I'm designing these actions is I'm doing 2 things. 1, I'm trying to evaluate them relative to the value of the skill, the value of the actions, all that other stuff. 2, I'm trying to make them diegetic. You know, I'm trying to make them interesting. I want them to feel right. And lastly, I want them to sort of have a unique thing that makes them different than other actions. So I do not want scuttlebutt, right, to just be a carbon copy of research game, you know? Sorry, I do not want scuttlebutt to just be a carbon copy of research desk. Okay. So now King Hodop says it should definitely be less directly effective. Now, unfortunately, remember this: our game is asynchronous, right? So the action itself has to be, you know, discrete. It has to be complete, right? It basically has to be one and done. You know, the other thing is the town actions that I'm building cannot and do not interact with anything that the GMs are doing. It's almost like these actions are just used to generate resources and do things in the town so that you can then go take other actions at other locations that people might build, right? So, you know, we generalize these things. Like you said, gaining rumors. Okay, well, gaining rumors is in this game is gaining knowledge, right? So, right off the bat, I don't know if this is true or not, but we could make this. We can play around with the values because I don't want the valuation here to be terrible. Because one of the decisions we have to make is this action is the base action, which is persuasion, better or worse than myths and legends as a skill. Now, Cinnabos, you're getting to the specials, and Cinnabos, that'll totally be something that we have in the specials, right? Which is, you know, buy a round, right? That'd even probably even be the name of the thing, right? So one idea that I have here, which we have not done yet, so this would make this action stand out a little bit, is that failure, instead of generating 0 knowledge, generates negative knowledge, okay? Which is the idea that somebody told you something, but it was not true. Okay, it's misinformation, it's disinformation, it's literally just a rumor. So that already makes this a very scary, because nothing else actually, nothing in the game does this, right? So, but your reaction. So this is what I call ludonarrative consonance, right? It's where the mechanic tells a story, right? Like if I told you that scuttlebutt is where you go and you pick up rumors at the tavern, and I go, but if you fail, you get negative knowledge. You go, oh, of course, I get what it's doing. Of course, it makes sense. All right. So again, let's just see what this would look like. Now, I don't know what critical failure is, but let's just right now, that doesn't really affect the numbers too much because they only happen 5% of the time. So if we made, actually failure is -3, because if you're losing a point of knowledge, knowledge has a value of 3. So obviously if we succeed, we get 3, and if we critically succeed, we get 6. So we could see that based off of our initial math, this right now is a terrible action, okay? Because it's literally worth half as much as research desk, because in this case, if we fail, we lose knowledge. So what that means is we need to change something. If we want to keep negative knowledge on a failure, which I think is pretty cool, then we need to do something bigger on success in order to balance that out. So let's just try this. If we made success 2 knowledges, well, now we could see that it's worth too much. So unfortunately, just making it plus 2 knowledge is too much. Now, it doesn't mean that we can't still use this. There might be a way that we could still mess around with this, and I'll get to that in a second. Could you make it a D6 roll? On a 5 or higher, gain 2 knowledge. On a 1 through 4, gain 1 knowledge. You could. You could totally do that. That might be a very effective and simple and easy way to do that. Because what you're effectively doing here is that 66% of the time, right? It's worth 1, so 0.66. I should say 3 because it's knowledge. And then 33% of the time, it's worth 6. So I don't actually need to sum product this, but I'm just doing this for my own purposes. So this then becomes, instead of 3.96, it eventually becomes 4. So that makes it somewhat better. What if we do 50-50? Then it's 4.5. And now it's exactly the same. It's 2.1. So it has the exact same relative value of 2.1 if we make it 50-50. So that's one way we could do it. Now, granted, it does feel different. And I will say this. Because there's a bigger risk with this action, it means that I actually want it to be a little bit better, believe it or not. So, I don't want to, because even if so here's the thing, these things both have the same expected value, 2.1 and 2.1, but this one can fuck you, right? And this one won't. Well, King Hodop, there's a couple different options. There's a couple different ways that we could do besides that, but besides just doing 60-30. One of the options that we could do is actually we can make, and by the way, we haven't even figured out what critical failure is yet. If critical failure is something like -6, then it goes down again. One option is to make critical success a little bit better, right? If I make critical success worth 10 points, then now the marginal value is 2.3 instead of 2.1. So it's about 10% better, which is probably something to be interesting, something to consider. Cinnabos asks, can you have like synergy with another downtime action, like critical scuttlebutt boon on research roll? Here's the problem, Cinnabos. We've received a lot of feedback, and we're definitely taking that to under advisement, and we're working through it. One of the complaints has been that people are like, oh, it's so much to track. you know, because people are used to having all this done on some cool, slick UI or your whatever your Farmville game. So I have tried to make it so that every action is sort of complete and discrete. I don't want to just set up, for the next action as much as I can, because I just don't want it. I think well, number one, there's just no way that I could track it. Number two, I think it's very prone to people forgetting and doing it wrong and messing with it. Cinnabon, if this was like, a cool graphic UI, you were clicking buttons on a screen, we could absolutely do that. And I think that'd be really, really cool. But, so Z says, I think I prefer 60-30. What if failure was also a 60 lose 1 knowledge / 40 action wasted? Then crit fail is -1 knowledge and disheartened. Yeah, that could also work for sure. So let's see if we did it 60. Right, so we lessen the failure party as well. So let's say, well, let's just say if it was 50-50. We get 4.5, and this was 50-50. It'd be -1.5. And then if this was, that's fine. And then if this was lose a knowledge and disheartened, so that'd be -3. So that puts us at 2.6. Now, technically, you're also gaining disheartened, but that's, so this is actually a little worse than it looks like right now, right? Actually, let me change this to 7. Well, so here's the thing. The reason why I had it at 10, King Hodop, the reason why I had it at 10 is because I was envisioning turning on my thing here. I don't remember where I put all my stuff here. Oh, here we go. So research desk, when you critically succeed, gives you 2 knowledge. That has a value of 6, right? 3 and 3, right here. So what I was thinking potentially was that for scuttlebutt, maybe the critical success gives you 1 knowledge plus 1 influence, which would be worth 7. But originally I was thinking maybe it was 2 knowledge and an influence, which would be 3 + 3 + 4, which would be 10. So the idea being that you met someone's, you didn't just meet anybody, right? You met someone special. And I should note that there are no actions in the game right now that can earn you influence except on like a very special instance and occasion. So for example, if you go to yeah, exactly. You're talking up Matt Mercer at the coffee shop. You make a really good impression, and not only do you gain some cool, sick knowledge, you also made a friend, in a high place, right? So like right now, the only place that can do this is the shipping pier. So when you go to the shipping pier, the first thing that you do when you arrive at the shipping, after you take the downtime action, you roll a d6 to see what kind of cargo you have been assigned. And if you roll a 6, you have been assigned fragile imports, delicate or valuable imports like silks, wines, spices, or fine glassware. Now this, unlike the other ones, has the white glove delivery effect, which makes that you have to make your seamanship roll with a bane. So it's tough to successfully unload a ship of fragile imports. All right, but if you do succeed at offloading these fragile imports, not only do you earn wealth, you also earn influence. So right now, this is the only action in the game that can earn you influence directly. So, and the idea being is that you're doing some rich snobby person a failure by, or a favor by us successfully unloading their expensive imports. Okay, what was Z saying here? White glove? Yeah, hold up. White glove delivery. You ever heard of white glove delivery? It's a saying, but it's a marketing term. It means that the people who are delivering your furniture or your piano, the idea is that they're wearing white gloves, because, and they like back in the day, like I think they actually did wear white gloves that were like padded, so they didn't like damage the thing that they're delivering. It basically meant like supreme. It requires extra care to deliver it. So I can't believe you know. You're a younger guy. Maybe it's an old term. Maybe it's just maybe it's like an old fogey term or like an adult term. But okay, what was Z saying? Maybe because the crit success is sweetened with influence, the crit failure and or regular failure is a little worse. Trying to make this slightly worse than research. Okay, so you think this should be worse than research? Okay. Yeah, right. Z, you can tell that there's no dirt on the hands. Yeah, exactly. Okay, there you go. See, white glove service is still used by delivery companies. There you go. Okay, so it's not a completely archaic term. I wasn't completely out of base. So you think that scuttlebutt should be worse than the research desk? That's interesting. I mean, maybe it should, for sure. I don't. Okay, that's okay. That's true. It feels weird if rumors are better at gaining knowledge than studying. Okay. Okay. Well, what happens if we make failure just straight up -3? And we make critical failure. Yeah, that's a great question. It feels like it should be a low investment thing. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Now there's another option that we could do. Okay. We could just see where this takes us. Okay. One option could be that scuttlebutt doesn't feel like it should cost anything, right? Unless you always, well, no, because we want to make that an option. Oh, that's what I was going with. Okay. So this is another option that we have. Okay. Sorry. I need to show you Discord again. Guildhall is the action that lets you make a craft check. Okay. But if you look at Guildhall, the first special is this: exacting standards. All Guildhall actions start with 2 Banes. Right? So before you even begin, this is not a choice. You don't get to, this is just always, right? Because this is skilled labor, and the guild has exacting standards. So to make something of their quality that's good enough to be passed out by the Guildhall, you start with 2 Banes. Part of the reason for this is because I don't want people who aren't really skilled using the Guildhall, because it's a very valuable action and it rewards people who are very engaged and sort of involved with this. So one option that we could go with Scuttlebutt isn't, maybe 2 Banes is out of the question, but one option that we could go with is we could start the action, right, with a Bane. maybe representing the fact that it's difficult, right? You know, you're walking into an establishment and you're trying to get valuable knowledge, okay? So if we do that, then our critical failure rate goes to 9%. Our critical success rate goes to 1 in 400%, 1/400th. Our failure rate our success rate goes to 36%, and our failure rate goes to 54%. Okay, so this is with 1 Bane. So if we do this, now, instead of using these percentages, 5%, 30%, 60%, now if we use, so by the way, this is an example. In Excel, okay, you can just drag these formula blocks, but in this you can't. And it's fucking annoying, that's all. It's almost like the random web-based sheets is bad. Okay. All right, so that changes the value of this to 0.6, right? Because that's how bad that is. So now we could maybe try raising this to 6. And we could try raising this. Oh, we already did raise that to 10. And we could try raising and then the failure. I don't hate that that's the failure. So now here's the thing. Before it sounds like it's bad. So now this is 2 knowledge on a success. It's 2 knowledge and an influence on a critical success. Maybe it's a 50-50 chance of losing it. You know, we'll make it terrible here. -3 on a failure, where you lose knowledge. Or maybe we make the lose knowledge only the critical failure. We could do that. And then that makes it a lot better, 1.9. Okay. But the reason why I say but, this is where the specials could come in. Okay. So 1.9 gives us a lower value, right? It's about 10% worse than the research desk, right? You probably aren't going to get anything, but there's a chance that you'll actually lose knowledge. And I still think I like the disheartened. And I'm sorry, about 10%. Sorry, 10%. And you know, if you succeed, you get 2 knowledge. So the success here is better than research desk. Research desk only gives you 1 knowledge. But this gives us 2 knowledge if we succeed, right? But finding that knowledge is really tough because with research desk, you know, we need 60%. Now, Cinnabos, you are absolutely right, because the thing is when people see that, oh, there's a Bane, they can go, oh, well, I'm going to use the specials in order to math it out. So what we actually have to do, Cinnabos, is sort of we can do this, Cinnabos, by mathing this out a different way. So what we can do here is we can take, this is scuttlebutt Bane, and this is scuttlebutt minus wealth. Okay, so in scuttlebutt minus wealth, it's going to be this -3. Oh no, yeah, -3, 0, 6, 10. Okay, so without a Bane, okay, without a Bane, The way we've written this now is 4, okay, which is really bad. But if we include the cost of the wealth, wealth has a value of 2. So if we make it 1 wealth, then the cost is -2 because you have to spend 1 wealth. So now if you spend 1 wealth, you go from this percentage of 9, 54, 36.25 to these percentages, 5, 30, 65. And now you get an expected value of 2.0. So it's still worse than Research Desk. You're not guaranteed anything, and you have to have the wealth to spend on it to do it. So it's equivalent. I don't, it's not fantastic. It's definitely not better than Research Desk, right? But it is, it's comparable, right? So basically, these two actions are relatively equivalent. By spending the wealth, you get a little bit better. Here's the thing. If spending the wealth made this way better, then it's not an option anymore. You would just do it every time, right? In this case, it's a little better. Well, no, but remember, this is minus the cost, King Hodop. You're actually going from a 1.9 return on investment to a 4.0 return on investment. So if the wealth made this 2.1 or 2.2, you would just always spend the wealth. Why would you ever not spend the wealth? It's worth so much, you would just do it every time. Right? So if it's too good, then it's not really a choice. You go, yeah, I'm going to spend it, right? It's like reckless attacking in 5e, or raging as a barbarian in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Are you really going to do it? Great. Well, number 1, you have to have the wealth available to you. Number 2, you're absolutely right, because here's the thing. You could spend that wealth, and there's still a 35% chance that not only will you not get anything back in return, you'll actually lose or gain nothing. So now you've invested wealth and you've gotten nothing for it. But you're doubling your expected value, King Hodop. You are doubling your expected value. In the long run. Like a smart person would spend the wealth every single time because it's worth the cost. It also depends, King Hodop, on what wealth is worth to you and what knowledge is worth to you. If, let's say, this week, in order to complete a building, you need a lot of wealth. Maybe you don't want to spend the wealth. Maybe to complete a building, you need a lot of knowledge. And so this week, even though I've priced them at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, if what you need as a player or what the community needs is knowledge, then maybe knowledge is virtually worth 4 or 5. Let me give you a great example of this. So this is the what are you doing over there, buddy? My dog's making weird noises. So this is the supply depot. Okay, this is the supply depot. The supply depot costs 1 downtime action. It is limited to twice per week, and it uses bartering. Okay, the effect is you can trade 1 wealth for either 3 supply, 4 supply. Now this effect, this is you basically buying bulk goods on the docks. Note that even when you fail, you still get to trade up to 3 times. You trade 0 to 3 times at a 1 to 3 ratio. When you succeed, it goes to a 1 to 4. And when you critically succeed, it stays at a 1 to 4 ratio. You can just now do it up to 5 times. This is a way that people can turn a more valuable resource, wealth, into a less valuable resource, supply. Now, you get it at a really good rate, but again, remember, supply is perceivably a lesser resource. But you're still limited because you can only take this action twice per week, which is why this action, preferred customer, spend an influence to let you take this action even if you are at the limit. This is a terrible return on investment. An influence is worth 4 points, relatively speaking. So why would anyone ever do this? You would do this because you fucking need a lot of supply and you need it now and you need it quick. Sometimes it's not about the actual math. It's about the flexibility and the resources relative advantage or the resources relative value that matters more than the other thing, if that makes any sense. Like if you're playing Magic the Gathering, people might look at a removal spell and say, oh my God, that removal spell costs 5 mana. That's a terrible removal spell. True, it is. But if you're about to lose to a 10/10 Uber Bomb, that you would pay 7 mana for that card because at that point in time in the game, killing that creature would be almost worth anything to you. Game design is hard. That is the summary of this stream, yes. So, okay. So, we might have gotten it. Correct. Pumpkin. I didn't see you come in. Right. That's now the best card in your hand. Exactly, Pumpkin. That you are 100% right. People might go, oh, that's a C tier. Maybe it's even a D tier removal spell. 6 mana, sorcery, kill anything. Ugh, we can do so much better. But when somebody plays their 9/9 trample, vigilance, lifelink, Baneslayer Angel, you're like, that is now the best card in my hand. You're exactly right, Pumpkin. You're exactly right. That's 100% right. So what if we made it look like this? So persuasion. Okay, let's go down the list. Cost, 1 downtime action. Great. Requirements. Should there be any requirements to scuttlebutt in order to take the action? Like for example, to go fishing, you have to have either a fishing rod or a fishing net. That might be the only one that has a requirement right now, I think. I don't think anything else has a fishing requirement. I don't imagine there is. You're just going into thing and buying it. Limit. Should there be a limit to the number of times that you can shoot the shit during the course of the week? I don't know, but I don't think so. Cinnabus says no rags. I love it. You know what, Cinnabus? Maybe we'll put that in the special. We'll put that in the special. Now, so special. Okay, let's start off with our key thing here, which is going to be, we got to give it a name. It means that you can't be wearing just clothing that's just rags. It's like one of the things that happens in Dragonbane is Cinnabos might be able to explain it better than me. He might know the rule better, but or they might know the rule better. As I think there's like, if you don't do something or if something happens to you, I think your clothing becomes rags or something. I think it's like one of the effects that can happen in the game. Is there a lobster or crawfish on the fishing table? Jorelson, I can neither confirm nor deny, but yes, there is. Oh yeah, it's on bushcraft stuff. Yeah, right. Requirements. Okay. Good night, Good night, King Hodop. We'll see you tomorrow. Yes, put shirt and shoes as requirements. Well, I want to use the appropriate Dragonbane terms here. Here we go. Okay, so here are our garment options. What do we like? So requirements has to be Pumpkin says hard god mythic catch confirmed. I can neither confirm nor deny. Oh, look at this. We could totally use this. So one of the rules that I have in my town game is that the effect in the game that only works for the adventure, right? It doesn't work. It doesn't work. Like its effect doesn't matter unless I specifically write that it matters and that it does something. So I think we'll make a rule here for fine government. So, yeah, I don't think. I mean, it's a rough and tumble town, right? So I think you need to either have simple clothes, okay, a fur. No, isn't that just like a rag or just like a blanket? Okay, so you have to have. Okay. You know what? How about we do this? We'll go back. Let me go back to my thing here. I got it. Part of me enjoys just the thing here. So the requirements will be none, but the first special rule will be I don't know. We'll come up with something here like I don't know, tight-lipped, all what language did I use for Guildhall? Okay, here we go. All Guildhall actions start with 2 banes. Okay, let me get this here. So I'm saying all right, so I'm saying tight-lipped, and then I'm saying all scuttlebutt actions start with 1 bane. Okay, so that's the first thing. Okay, next we're going to call this dressed to impress. The type of clothing you are wearing affects as follows. Rags. How do I want to do this? There we go. Rags. Plus 1 bane. Simple clothes. Is that what's called? Simple clothes? Simple clothing? Simple clothes. No effect. And then the other one's called fine garments. Fine garments. All right. So, tight-lipped, all scuttlebutt. If I could spell it right, that would be nice. Scuttlebutt. Actions start with 1 bane. Then the dress to impress rule. The type of clothing you are wearing affects as follows. Actually, the type of clothing you are wearing has the following effects. There we go. Rags gives you a +1 bane. Simple clothes, no effect. Fine garments, +1 boon. All right. There could be a run on needles and threads in the bazaar if the DMs are using the rip close rule of bushcraft. I hope they are. This would be nice. It does, Z. But here's the beautiful thing about it, Z. It's a 10 gold garment. But I was going to say, but we can fix this by destroying things, which is what I do in fishing. So in fishing, nets, when you roll nat 1, your rod or net is destroyed. Right? So I absolutely, I'm 100% on board with this. In fact, that whole thing just gives me a whole new idea here. So let's go to this. So we're going to go, let me buy you around. Spend 1 wealth to gain +1 boon. Okay. So let me buy you around. Spend 1 wealth to gain +1 boon. Okay. I know a guy. Cinnabos, it is not 2. 1 wealth is worth 2. Right? In our relative value. So me putting a cost of -2 is because it is wealth. 1 wealth is worth 2. Supply is worth 1. Knowledge is worth 3. Influence is worth 4. Wait. Let me introduce you to my friend. Spend, it's okay, 1 influence to gain, and this is, I'm going to put a question mark here because it could be a boon, but whatever. Because at this point, if you're spending all these things, you're getting a lot of stuff here. But I like the idea that if you have influence, right, you can, let me introduce you to my friend. You can use your influence so that you can meet the people that you need to talk to, that can get you in with where you need to go, right? So fundamentally, I think this is pretty good. So our spend 1 influence for 2 boons. No, I think that's too good. Again, this is an option for people who really want to fish for dragons. That's, I mean, at that point, and then I think it just makes it too easy to get a dragon. Did I do something for that with Bluff? That's my languages. Oh yeah, okay, I did that there. Maybe that could be DTA company. Do the thing twice for 1 DTA. What do you mean, Cinnabos? I don't think I understand what that means or what you're trying to say. And what did we decide? We decided, right. Success gives you 2 knowledge. Failure gives you no knowledge. -1 knowledge. Spend 1 influence. We don't have anything that does that. I don't. Well, so this is what I was going to say. So I was going to say, this is one idea that I have, okay? This is make it like research desk. Limit is going to be none, but it's going to say I want to use the same language I always use. So, okay. All right, here we go. Limit 3 times per week, C cramming. So this is going to be limit none. C U again. And I was going to add this. U again. Each additional scuttlebutt action you take per week gains an additional +1 Bane. All right, does that make sense? So that they can't spam it. And if they want to keep spamming it, they're going to eventually have to start coughing up money or influence. And so even if somebody has a really good, basically, quote unquote, auto success, it'll only be for that first action. If they want to take this 2, 3, 4 times, they're going to have a ton of Banes. Each additional scuttlebutt action you take after the first each week gains an additional cumulative plus +1 Bane. Yes, negating, right, it literally is the same thing, Z. And I don't want to, I think that's a lot of juice for the squeeze. Like, if somebody really wants to get like a mega boon on their first roll, that's fine. And after that, it just cancels it. Yes. But it is essentially cancelous. Yes, it's cumulative upkeep. It is cumulative upkeep, George. Right. So, you know, because by the time you take the second scuttlebutt action each week, all right, you're already at 2 Banes. So, you know, that's pretty gnarly, you know. Basically, there's only so much rumors and people that you can buy, unless you're willing to use your influence or, you know, buy wealth or whatever, you know. Now, we could just say spend 1 influence to gain 1 Bane, 1 boon. That's that is definitely it is basically cumulative upkeep. Yes, it is. So that's an option. Do we want the influence to be able to negate all of it? I don't think so, because research desk, right? Research desk you can use 3 times for free, and then you just get a 1 thing. And we did want this to be worse, and so in some ways it becomes worse because it's not good at spamming it. Like Scuttlebutt, getting rumors and getting valuable rumors is really useful the first time. It becomes way less useful the second and the third. And by the time you get to the by the time you get to the third time, it's like the -10 map attack. It's not really worth doing it. The only person that's worth doing it for is someone who has really nice clothing, is willing to spend money. I mean, by the time you get to just the third action, right, you're at -3 Banes. So even if you're wearing fine garments and even if you're buying around, you're still at 1 Bane. So, I mean, that's a lot of it basically makes it so that this is effectively limited to once or twice a week. But if somebody really wants to invest in it and they really want to gain knowledge and their character is a charismatic-based character, they can do it, but it becomes very costly. Whereas with the research desk, you know, if you're good at researching, you could do that 3 times per week with no cost at all and no real downside. So the advantage then of research desk becomes in its consistency, right? And so maybe the first action of Scuttlebutt, if you have the right tools, is very good, but it very quickly falls off. And this is what I meant by trying to make the actions have a lot of nuance and a lot of interactivity. I do love the idea of the bar fight, though. So, like, I don't want to like make things like too complicated, but I kind of I'll say so. It's gonna say -1 knowledge, minimum 0. Obviously, you can't lose knowledge you don't have. But I love the idea of a bar fight. How much work do we want to put in to the demon result? Like, Do we want to have, like, when you roll a demon, you roll on a d6, and that determines what happens, and then we have 6 different, 6 different outcomes? Like, one is you get in a bar fight, one is you get bad information, one is, you get a drink spilled on you, you get a drink thrown in your face. So now normally I wouldn't really worry about it because the demon is only 5% of the time, but this is an action that starts with a bane and potentially can stack up bane. So if somebody does this action 1, 2, or 3 times in a week, they're going to be at, by the third action, they're going to be at 3 banes. Conveniently enough, by the way, because it starts with a bane and then it adds additional banes, the action that you're taking is always the number of banes. So the first action, 1 banes. The second action, 2 banes. The third action, 3 banes. The fourth action, 4 banes. So it does scale very nicely with the number of times you've taken the action. That was accidental. I didn't plan for that, but it does work out. This is one of those things where it's like, as a game designer, like, I don't know if I'm just indulging myself or like in creating extra work for myself that doesn't really need to exist, but I do think it's fun. I don't know. What do you guys think for the demon? I don't even know how many people are still here. Probably nobody. They probably said, "Oh, Derek's going to talk about Daggerheart," and they came in and then they said, "Nope, he's not. Fuck that." I don't know. What for Twitch. Let's see if I remember how to do that this time. Mod actions. This user has not had any mod actions taken on them. Manage suspicious user. Okay. Man, I got to admit, the Twitch interaction is so bad. Like, I thought Twitch would have this amazing... I just thought Twitch would have this amazing way to, like, interact with people, and it is so bad. Like, compared to YouTube, it's so crazy. I can't believe it sometimes myself, that it's so bad. Okay. It's just crazy how long it takes to fucking do that. Okay. So what are we looking at here? Critical failure, demon. Let's see. So, what could we have here? Bar fight. Oh, okay. All right. I had a good idea there. Let me see here. So this is what I'm thinking. Okay, demon. Let me see what. Let me find one of my other effects where I did this. Okay, here we go. Okay. Okay. Z, take care, buddy. We're gonna call this I guess we'll call this I don't know. I don't know what we should call this. Tavern troubles. Roll a d6 to see what kind of trouble you've gotten into. Okay, so I think we'll use the same thing here. We'll have like 1 to 3 being like the standard. And then 4, 5, and 6 will be the quote-unquote bad ones. So 1 to 3 will be sort of our base, right? Misinformation. I don't know how to descriptively call that. Red herring. The information you gained turned out to all be hogwash. Lose lose 1 knowledge, gain gain angry. The information you thought you gained turned out to all be hogwash. Lose 1 knowledge, gain angry. Okay, 5 is going to be our bar fight. 4 is going to be thrown drink. And 6 is going to be blacklisted. I'm just thinking like you get banned from the tavern. I don't know how we would do that, but it's actually Hardrick. It's funny that you say that because one of the options, which is called the dockside market. In the dockside market, this action is used for you to basically sell your supply. So you can trade supply for wealth, but there's an option called the dockside hustle, and it's an option. But before attempting the bartering skill, you may make a bluffing skill roll first. And if you succeed at the bluffing skill roll, then when you make your bartering skill, the results are upgraded by 1 step. So a failure becomes a success becomes a dragon. But if you get a roll of demon on the bartering, you get caught in a scam, and your character loses prestige points, which are like this game's version of like victory points. Anyways, so we have it the other side of it. Okay, so let's see here. Thrown drink. You thought it was going so well. What did you say? All right, so if you get the thrown drink in your face, clothing. How do we want to put this? Clothing is turned. What's the right phrase? Current clothes downgraded to rags. Gain disheartened condition. Oh, that's a good one too, Hardrick. Actually, you know what? I'm going to totally do that. So 1 through 2 is going to be red herring. The information you thought the information you thought you had gained turned out to all be hogwash. Lose 1 knowledge, gain the angry condition. Thrown drink. You thought it was going so well. What did you say? Current clothing downgraded to rags. Gain the disheartened condition. I'm going to add a 3, which is stuck with the tab. Oh, this is fun. Sir, before you leave, there's the matter of the bill. Okay, so here's what I'm going to say. Stuck with the tab. Before you continue, there's the matter of the bill. Okay, I'll say this. Spend 3 wealth to gain 1 knowledge. Otherwise, lose 10 prestige. Actually, I'll make that 2 wealth because that's a downgrade. So basically, if you get stuck with the tab, you can either pay, and if you pay, then you still manage to get something else. But if you pay, you can still gain a point of knowledge. But if you don't pay, then oh, this is all getting chunked up there. There we go. So 1 through 2, red herring. The information you thought you would gain turned out to all be hogwash. Lose 1 knowledge, gain the angry. Stuck with the tab. Spend 2 wealth to gain 1 knowledge. Otherwise, lose 10 prestige. What do we got here? What are the conditions in Dragonbane? Exhausted doesn't probably feel right. Scared, sickly, dazed. I think angry could still be right. No, we'll just leave it at 10 prestige. Prestige. Okay, bar fight. Let's see here. The room erupts in shouting, shoving, and swinging fists. Okay, how do we want to do bar fight? Well, we have the explosion from the shipping pier, which does damage to you. We can do that. Yeah, take 2d10 damage. If reduced to 0 hit points or lower, roll on the severe injury table. Perfect. Oh, I can't wait till somebody gets killed in a bar. Oh, this is great. And then lastly, maybe not blacklisted. I don't know. Maybe I like bar fight too much. Maybe I should make that 5 and 6 and forget this one. Just because it's late, I don't care anymore. All right, 5 and 6. There we go. Okay. Make an advancement roll for persuasion skill. Okay. So what do I want to do? Let me introduce you to my friend. Spend 1 influence to gain. That should look right. Let's up this prestige point loss a little bit. Let's go 20. And yeah. I think that's pretty good. I'm gonna call. I gotta always give these things here. New friends. Listen, it's a rough and tumble. It's a rough and tumble. Hardrick says it sounds more like a roadhouse. Listen, it's a rough and tumble frontier sea shanty town, right? I mean, you know, the tavern of the Last Call is not a fancy place for soft folk, okay? So, okay, I love it. I think this is good. So the cost is 1 downtime action. The requirements is none. The limit is none, but it does have the you again. Actually, maybe I'll change this again here. I don't like that name. I'm going to change it to back again so soon. I like that better. Back again so soon. Skill roll is persuasion. Special, tight-lipped, all scuttlebutt actions start with 1 bane. Back again so soon. Each additional scuttlebutt action you take after the first each week gains an additional cumulative +1 bane. Dress to impress. The type of clothing you are wearing has the following effects. Rags, +1 bane. Simple clothes, no effect. Fine garments, +1 boon. Let me buy you around. Spend 1 wealth to gain +1 boon. Let me introduce you to my friend. Spend 1 influence to gain. We still have to decide what that is. If you roll, if you get a demon, tavern troubles. Roll a d6 to see what kind of trouble you've gotten into. 1 through 2, red herring. The information you thought you had gained turned out to all be hogwash. Lose 1 knowledge. I got to put that back in there. Lose 1 knowledge. Minimum 0. And gain angry condition. Period. 3, stuck with the tab. Sir, before you continue, there's the matter of the bill. Spend 2 wealth to gain 1 knowledge. Otherwise, lose 20 prestige. 4, thrown drink. You thought it was going so well. What did you say? Current clothing downgraded to rags. Gained disheartened condition. And then lastly, 5 through 6, bar fight. The room erupts in shouting, shoving, and swinging fists. Take 2d10 damage. If reduced to 0 hit points or lower, roll on the severe injuries table. Bar ball closed to rags. I mean, then it just becomes like, you know, the same as the thrown drink one, but, you know, worse. I don't think we need to. I don't think we need to do that. All right, you know what? We'll do this. Take 2d10 damage. If reduced to 0 hit points or lower, if reduced to 0 hit points or lower, current clothing downgraded to rags, and roll on the severe injury tables. So if you get knocked out, your clothing got tore up. There we go. Take 2d10 damage. If reduced to 0 hit points or lower, current clothing downgraded to rags, and roll on the severe injuries table. Oh, someone's going to get like a black eye. Someone's going to get a concussion from the bar brawl. It's so good. You know what? Actually, I'm going to change this here from bar fight to bar room brawl. It just sounds funner. There we go. Barroom brawl. Is barroom one word? Barroom. Oh, it is one word. And it's got 2 R's too. There we go. It just looks like a lot of R's. I don't know. I don't know. And you know what? It looks weird to me. So I'm going to put a hyphen in. And Google says it's acceptable. All right, barroom brawl. There we go. And then again, if you fail, you get nothing. If you succeed, you get 2 knowledge. So research desk is worth 1 knowledge. This is worth 2 knowledge, but obviously a lot more risky. You know, especially if shit goes sideways. And again, it starts off tough, right? You start with 1 bane, so it is tough to get. You really have to either be really good at persuasion, or you have to be really, you know, dressed to impress, buying rounds, and now we just have to decide what influence does. So the easiest thing to do would be just to give a boon. But there are other options that we could consider besides just getting a boon and bane. Boon and banes are obviously the simplest and the easiest ones, and maybe that's fine for this. But yeah, I'm not going to overthink it right now. It's just the beta. If I come up with something really clever later on, I can always change it. Besides, like, there's this idea that people might need okay. Save. I think this is good for publication. Oh, I messed that up there. There we go. I'll just space this out a little bit because I can. New friends in low places. Gain 2 knowledge plus 1 influence. Make an advancement roll for persuasion. Yeah, sick. All right. All right. Well, it is open for business. So we've got another building done. So there we go. We needed to complete 4, and I thought we were going to be done by midnight, and it's 1:30 in the morning, and we finished 1. And by the way, this is the simple one. So yeah, this is, so if you want to know, if you know, you may not necessarily care about Dragontide, you may not care about this silly little game that we're making here, which is totally respectable. But if you want to know why Derek says all the time, it would take me forever to finish anything, and why I can't get anything done, then this is why. Because I think game design is really tough, and maybe it's just maybe I'm very bad at it, which is entirely a possibility. But I like to go over all of these things with a fine-tooth comb and try to come up with interesting mechanics that interact with one another and, you know, are balanced against one another, and try to get it right on the first try, or at least get it pretty freaking close, and to provide, you know, fun, unexpected outcomes and, you know, interesting player decisions and, you know, cool little moments that use the mechanics to tell a story, yada, yada, yada. And this was one action for a beta version of a frickin', you know, Dragonbane town game. Can you imagine if I was trying to, like, make a game system? Oh my God. It would take me 1 trillion years. I can't even begin to think about that. So again, you got to see my incompetence on full display tonight, because, you know, this is how long it takes me to do this stuff. And again, this was a simple one relative to, you know, some of the other ones. Like, for example, when I do treasure diving, treasure diving and field expedition, I want them to be like whole ass like mini games with like a press your luck type thing. 2d10 great sword damage. Hardrick, listen, it's a whole barroom brawl, you know. The thing about it, Hardrick, is when you're in town, you can always go to the tavern and heal. I mean, it does cost a downtime action. So, like, if it doesn't have a chance of realistically if it doesn't have a chance of reducing you to 0, it's almost like there's no point in rolling it, basically. And since no one can have 20 hit points, it means that 2d10 is always live for any character. And so that's the reason why I went with 2d10. Basically. Because remember, it represents the entire brawl, Hardrick. So you take 2d10 over the course of the entire brawl. If that makes sense. But yeah, I want field expedition and treasure diving to be like actually like almost like little complete mini games. And then pickpocketing is going to actually be pretty simple too. Pickpocketing is just going to be an option to gain a very risky proposition to gain a bunch of wealth. But if you get caught, like it's going to be like bad for you, and you're either going to have to like pay a fine or lose downtime actions. Which obviously none of the rest of them make you lose downtime actions, but pickpocketing is going to make you lose downtime actions if you fail. So. And probably make you lose prestige. Prestige is like this game's like victory points. It represents like how like well liked you are in the city. And like so when you do projects to help out the town, you earn prestige points and stuff like that. So that's why like on Scuttlebutt, if you don't pay your tab, you lose 20 prestige points. Which some people may not care about. Similarly, on Shipping Pier, if you're unloading hazardous freight and you cause a dockside catastrophe, you lose 50. Prestige. Because, blowing up the docks in a seaside city is considered pretty bad manners. Okay. So yeah. That's that. You know what? I know this was kind of a weird stream, and it was late, and we didn't get a lot of people, and it was mostly just me working through stuff. But I think this has been like one of our like smallest, quietest streams that we've had in a very, very long time, and I kind of like it. It reminds me of the olden days. It's so funny. I remember we have how many people do we have? I was talking the other day. It's like we have 35 people, and like 35 people is like that used to be like a massive thing, and now it's like, oh, it's a small, intimate stream where we can actually listen to people and stuff like that. Yeah, Beowulf, I don't want prestige to be a resource that you spend, Beowulf, but I could totally see things being gated behind prestige. And in fact, like I said, if you go too negative, I think we might have some sort of like, infamy type system as well. But yeah, I think that could be totally fun. That would be fun. Dang. Yeah, well, YouTube doesn't want to, give me the props. I will tell you something. I was very upset today. The last like week since I got back from Vegas, I've been actually a week and a half. I was sick, so I guess maybe I was sick for a couple days. But other than that, I've been eating great, really, really tracking calories really, really well, really hard. Going to the gym almost every day and getting in like 12, 15,000 steps a day. And my roommate is in Arizona, is visiting her boyfriend, and so it's just been me and the dogs. So I've been like spending even more time with the dogs because their mom isn't home to help take care of them. So I'm getting tons of 15,000 steps going to the gym, and I'm like up, I'm like up 2 pounds from when I got back from Vegas, and I was just like, I know. It's just like random fluctuations, and on a daily basis. But it's just one of those things where it's like, it's just so annoying. Losing weight is so hard, well, at least for people like me. So losing weight, game design, and having all of my friends be available to play RPGs. Those are like the 3 things that I really struggle with these days. Anyways, it's cool. It's awesome that, like, it's very humbling to be like, hey, I can throw a random stream on at 11 o'clock at night, unexpectedly, unannounced, and we can still get like 30, 40 people. And that used to be a big, that used to be like our big stream, and now it's like it's kind of cool. So, anyways, well, that was one action. I guess I got to do some more work tomorrow. Good news, I don't think we're playing D&D tomorrow. Or Pathfinder 2 or Starfinder 2, whatever the hell game we're playing these days. Tomorrow's the 26th. Nope, Bob and Smith are out. And if Smith's out, he's the GM, so he's definitely out. And then I've been trying to schedule our KOLC show, but everyone has filled out but Smith. And Tim said he was going to fill it out twice, once with babysitting, once without babysitting. So I don't know what we're gonna do there, but fair enough. Yeah, YouTube, Discord ping. I don't know. Anyways, so for those of you who didn't hear the announcement, what I'm going to try to do now is I'm going to try to do one first look a week, and we've got a queue in the Patreon that we're basically just going to work through the queue. Whatever's the next one gets done. If patrons want to add to the queue, they can with their tickets. Our elite patrons with their gold tickets can put something to the front of the line if they want to. But we're just going to make our way through that, and we're going to try to do one first look a week because, it's not like a problem, but like some people got frustrated because they keep asking for a video and a game, and it just never gets enough votes to really make it over the hump. And I just feel bad for people who've been trying to get their games in there for like months. So now we're just going to go to a queue system, and again, I'm going to try to do them once a month. And I know my patrons love the first looks. I know we just did a YouTube poll, and they were very basically tied for first place. So I'm going to definitely try to do first looks. As for Daggerheart content, I have no idea what to do. And by no idea what to do, I just mean like I don't really even know what content people want or people need. Obviously, Daggerheart's very popular in the Knights of Last Call Patreon, but it's also pretty popular apparently in our YouTube audience because we had over 700 people fill out that poll, and that won by 5 or 6% by being number one. It didn't have the majority, but it certainly had the plurality. And I did a follow-up vote or a follow-up poll where I asked people, okay, fine, Daggerheart, what do you want to see? Obviously, we are going to do an actual play, hopefully, at some point. We got to actually get people. We got to get a schedule together. I got to finally plug in all these wires, get these cameras all hooked up. We got to figure out. I mean, we just have to do the session 0 stuff. So that alone is going to take at least a couple of weeks for sure. But yeah, so people said that the number one advice they want is building adversaries, environments, and campaign frames for Daggerheart. And while I'm happy to do that, I really need to point out that nobody's a Daggerheart expert yet. I mean, there's people out there who are like literally publishing Daggerheart stuff, content, asking for money for it, and I go, what have they even played Daggerheart? Like, that's crazy. I don't know. It just feels kind of weird for me, given that I've only played Daggerheart like twice, and not since the release. I haven't played Daggerheart, so I only played it when it was still in beta. So it's a little strange, but we could maybe do that. Have fun with that. What is next in the first look? Nimble. Nimble. The fast tactical RPG. With the ever important phrasing on it of 5e compatible. Now, by the way, shout out to Evan. I don't know if his name's on here. Evan. I don't want to get it wrong. His name's Evan. Beautiful box set, by the way. This thing is crazy. I'm sure we can't make these anymore because of the tariffs. Evan Diaz, with writing and editing contributions from Taryn Pounds, a.k.a. Indestructible Boy. Anto from Icarus Games. Cool. Anyways, this is going to be our next first look. But it's crazy to me because this is a very beautiful little box set. There's no doubt about it. But you know, you got the core rules, which are, I don't know, 30 pages long. A book called Heroes, which I imagine is, you know, the PC classes. Yeah, character creation and 9 classes. And then the Game Master's Guide, which is a little bit thicker, coming in at 100 pages. And again, this is all like A4, A5 size, right? And then we get 2 decks of cards. This is why this stuff can't be made anymore, because the tariffs would just kill this. And a GM screen. But for the don't cheat. What is the retail price of this box set in US dollars? So it's the 3 hardcover books, the core rules, which is about 40 or 50 pages, Heroes, which is about 40 or 50 pages, and the Game Master's Guide, which is about 100 pages. That's a roughly estimate. And then a GM screen. And again, it's digest size. I'll answer for you. $150. Whew. Thank you, Evan, for sending that to me. I don't know that I could have afforded that. That was very nice of you. He sent it to me, and I was like, oh, that's cool, let's go. And then I was looking, I was like, oh, it's $150. Jesus. Anyways, Nimble. So when is it? I don't know. Next week. You know, maybe try to get into a routine. I don't want to get like too dogmatic about it, but you know, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday, something like that. We'll do something like that. Anyways, cool stuff. Well, we got one done. We didn't get to talk about Daggerheart, but I guess the next time I stream, we might do a Daggerheart stream. I guess I'll ask the patrons what they want to see. Maybe we'll do some adversary creation. That sounds kind of pretty cool. I mean, I know that a lot of people are saying, oh, there's not enough adversaries. This game needs a bestiary. And I don't know that you're wrong. So maybe we'll take a look at that. In the meantime, if you're interested in playing Dragontide, if all that stuff that we were just talking about tonight looks really cool, you can do it by joining our Patreon, patreon.com/nightslastcall. It's $10 a month. You got to join at the champion tier. Now, if you don't care about playing in our mega campaigns, you can join at the night level. It's $5. You get access to the Discord. You get access to all of our other community-run games by other community members. But if you the champion tier, the $10 tier, gets you into our mega games. So there is a slight premium just because of all the extra work like that me and Bob have to do that you've kind of seen here, a glimmer, a schmibjib of tonight. And also because we just have to be much more actively involved. So if you're interested, patreon.com/nightslastcall. We've got a couple of YouTube videos that Bob has made to help guide you and onboard you that are available for our patrons. There's a really cool series of videos Bob made for the GMs and for the players. You can join as GM or player or as both. You get to play and GM in the game. You can make a player and a thing. Make a player and an island. You can make a PC and an island, so you can have people come adventure on your island, and then you can go play your player character on other people's island. Or maybe you just want to play around in town and help the town solve problems by fishing off the docks and then using your fish and selling them at the dockside market for wealth, and then taking your wealth and going to the taverns to acquire a bunch of knowledge, and then using your knowledge in order to solve the town's water crisis. That was one of the first week's issues. So we'd love to see you. We'd love to hang out with you. We'd love to see you next time on Knights of Last Call. Good night, everybody. Peace out.